Our agenda begins with an APBD patient, Deborah Goldman, who will be describing her real life experience.
Hello and welcome. I would like to tell you my story and symptoms shared by others with APBD. In addition, I will tell you about my brother who passed away 2 years ago from the devastating consequences of this illness. I have been a clinical and research psychologist for the past 36 years. My symptoms began in my late 40s. I became increasingly aware of difficulty walking at a fast pace, numbness in my feet, and an inability to run. I had always been athletic, and walking was a passion of mine. I would walk for miles from one part of New York City to the other, but I lost my ability to do that over time. Next, I became aware of urinary frequency. Family outings were marked invariably by my need to make multiple stops to use a bathroom. My symptoms appeared to be progressing, which prompted me to see a neurologist who was also treating my brother at the time for similar symptoms. I had a full battery of tests, including several MRIs, which revealed multi-system atrophy with an impression of a sporadic, progressive neurodegenerative disease of adult onset. I was then diagnosed with Charcot-Marie tooth disease in 2006, the same diagnosis that my brother had. Several years later, on follow-up and a repeat MRI, the neurologist added a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. I carried these diagnoses for 8 years until my brother was correctly re-diagnosed by blood test with APBD. I too was tested and the diagnosis was confirmed. That was about 6.5 years ago. I got involved with the APBD Research Foundation within 2 weeks of my diagnosis. I attended a day-long scientific meeting and got to know other patients who were involved in some capacity with the foundation. In a few short years, I witnessed the loss, one by one, of several members of this community. It reminded me of a murder mystery I had seen while in graduate school called 10 Little Indians. Each time a guest at this secluded hotel was murdered, a clay figure of an Indian would fall off the fireplace mantelpiece. The play was about finding the murderer to prevent further losses. My involvement with the APBD community paralleled that feeling of loss, as one by one, members, colleagues, friends, and family died. My brother was one of those people. He was 6 years older than me, a brilliant gastroenterologist who was devoted to his family and his career. His disease progressed rapidly. He had lost the use of his legs and was in a motorized wheelchair. His short-term memory was gone, and he had become incontinent. The last 1.5 years of his life were spent in a revolving door of assisted living, hospitalization, and rehab. He had upper respiratory infections and wounds that would not heal. He was intubated and in the ICU 3 times during that period. Life for him and his family became tortured, painful, and tragic. He died 2 weeks after his 67th birthday. His death was difficult for all to come to terms with. Shortly after that, I had a nightmare that I was tied to a railroad track and saw a train approaching. The awareness that there was little I could do was overpowering. Today, my symptoms have worsened. I have severe muscle wasting and osteoporosis. I am at highest risk of fracture. I have poor balance. I have lost my ability to stand or walk freely and have now transitioned to using a walker. I have had frequent falls and have broken my sternum, hip, and pelvis. I have a neurogenic bladder, significant loss of bladder control, and take medication several times a day to prevent and treat frequent urinary tract infections. I catheterize several times a day. In addition, I have significant immobilizing bouts of fatigue, where walking up the steps is an impossibility. I am still working part-time as a clinical psychologist. I keep my mind and body active with daily exercise, social contact, and various intellectual pursuits. I'm on a low carbohydrate, high protein diet and a daily 14-hour fast as recommended by my doctors. I have hopes and aspirations to see my 2 children who are in their 20s get married, flourish in their careers, and have children. I want to spare future generations from the horrible consequences of APBD and remain hopeful that the scientists and researchers will find a treatment or a cure to help make that happen. Thank you.